All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really intense, highly persuasive argument, why Cristiano Ronaldo is perfectly poised to carry his nation to World Cup glory. When you read through this material, it honestly feels less like your standard sports analysis and a lot more like, well, an epic Hollywood script. The whole premise here is fascinating. It's asking us to consider if a single legendary player, armed with just sheer force of will, historical momentum, and raw ability, can literally single-handedly dominate the most grueling, prestigious tournament on the planet. I mean, it's a massive claim, right? So let's break down exactly how this argument is built. Right off the bat, look at this quote, "The last dance, a final quest for ultimate glory." Talk about setting an emotional, high-stakes tone. This isn't just a bunch of football matches played in a vacuum. No, this is the last dance. The source material is basically demanding that we look at this upcoming World Cup not just as another shiny piece of silverware to chase, but as the absolute, final, definitive chapter for one of the greatest icons the game has ever seen. We're talking about the culmination of literally decades of sweat, shattered records, and just this relentless ambition, all distilled into one final campaign on the world stage. Which brings us directly to the million-dollar question. Can one single player actually carry an entire nation on global sport's biggest stage? To figure that out, we're going to use this explainer to break down the three core pillars that the text highlights. These are the things that make him the absolute ultimate player to watch right now. We'll dive into his foundational talent, that legendary hunger of his, and his completely unique psychological makeup, just to understand exactly why the source material is betting so heavily in his favor. So, let's kick things off with Section 1, the ultimate World Cup quest, high stakes and emotional drama. When you really dig into the text here, you realize the stakes absolutely could not be higher. The World Cup is literally the one crowning jewel that has eluded him, right? It's that final missing piece of the puzzle in an otherwise flawless museum of footballing achievements. This is the story of a legend who is just determined to leave an indelible mark, making sure his final bow on the global stage is nothing short of triumphant. It's not about just showing up and getting a participation trophy. It's a relentless pursuit to completely rewrite history. And honestly, the persuasive power of this whole argument relies heavily on that emotional weight, that tangible, almost electric feeling that destiny is calling. Moving right along to Section 2, generational football talent, the first pillar of the argument. Okay, so even in the twilight of his incredibly long career, this argument rests on a solid bedrock of undeniable physical and technical supremacy. First up, unmatched physicality. I mean, we're talking about an athlete whose insane dedication to conditioning has completely defied athletic aging. The guy is leaping higher than defenders a full decade younger than him and striking with absolute explosive power. Second, we've got elite technical skill. His ball control, his spatial awareness, the way he reads the entire rhythm of the game, it's all just sharpened and becomes so much more efficient with experience. And finally, lethal finishing. Give this man half a chance, literally a fraction of an inch of space in the penalty box, and he is going to punish the opposition. The text argues that these aren't just isolated, random traits. They form a perfectly engineered toolkit built specifically for World Cup domination. Now let's look at Section 3, insatiable competitive hunger, the second pillar of the argument. Look, every professional player wants to win, obviously, but the text makes this incredibly compelling case that his desire operates on an entirely different frequency. We are talking about a borderline obsession with victory here. It's exactly this hunger that pushes a player to sprint all the way back on defense in the 90th minute, or to scream for the ball when the team is down a goal. He absolutely refuses to accept defeat, even when the odds are overwhelmingly stacked against his nation. It's this fiery, completely infectious determination that just elevates every single other player on the pitch with him. Which brings us to Section 4, the big game mentality, the third pillar of the argument. You really have to notice the stark contrast here on this slide. It's literally ice versus fire. The World Cup is an absolute pressure cooker. The hopes, the dreams, the immense expectations of millions of people back home, that stuff can easily crush average players. They freeze up, they overthink, their legs get heavy, right? But the source text points out that Ronaldo's psychological makeup is just fundamentally totally different. While average players freeze under that immense pressure, he literally uses it as fuel. He is actively elevated by the biggest moments. When the stadium lights are the absolute brightest, when the stakes are do or die, that is exactly when he demands the spotlight. And honestly, this mental armor is what the argument relies on most heavily. Because let's be real, you can have all the talent and hunger in the world, but if you shatter under the lights, the whole shebang means absolutely nothing.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Ronaldo's final dance, the climax of a legacy. So, when we bring his talent, hunger, and mentality all together, we can see exactly how this final quest unfolds step by step. Step 1 is the unseen preparation. This is the grueling hours, the relentless physical conditioning, and that intense mental framing required before a single ball is even kicked in the host country. Then, step 2 is the crucible of the tournament itself. This is where those three pillars we just talked about are deployed match by exhausting match. He has to navigate the tactical traps of the group stages and that totally unforgiving, sudden death nature of the knockout rounds. And finally, step 3, the legacy. This is the ultimate payoff, guys. A World Cup victory here wouldn't just be another trophy tossed into a crowded cabinet. It's about cementing his status in the pantheon of football immortals forever. It takes a great career and literally transforms it into a mythical one.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. The source material has laid out a highly persuasive, intense, and deeply emotionally charged argument for us today. We've gone through the precise mechanics of his generational talent, the unstoppable fire of that insatiable hunger, and the cold steel of his big game mentality. So whether you are a lifelong diehard supporter or just a neutral observer of the beautiful game, you have to admit, the pieces are on the board and the stage is perfectly set for a dramatic, unforgettable climax to a truly historic career. The only question left is, when the referee blows that final whistle, are you ready to witness history unfold?